I kind of like label this particular letter as a corporate Game of Thrones.
Yes.
So let's go. So dear Building Better Leaders, I work in a company led by two co-founders who quite frankly don't get along. They disagree in meetings, sometimes subtly, sometimes not. Their visions pull in opposite directions, and the head of departments often find themselves caught between conflicting messages. One founder might approve a direction only for the other to overturn it the next day. And as an HOD, I often feel caught in the crossfire trying to get my job done while dodging office politics. So as a mid-level manager, I just want clarity so I can lead my team well. But instead, I spend half my time navigating politics I have no power to change. It's exhausting. I want to focus on results and helping my team to grow, but I feel like I'm playing a game I never signed up for, and I'm starting to see different camps forming. What do you do when the dysfunction is coming from the top?
Wow, this is really hard.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is hard actually. Yeah. So, as always, hard questions. Ladies first.
That's very graceful of you. Yeah, I think it really is a good analogy as like, in a family and the parents are, quarreling all the time. Yeah, I think that's a good analogy to use. So it's always hard on the kid, right? And even for the relatives like auntie, uncles, and all this. Many times we are forced to take sides when there is differences. Yeah. So I think from the letter and the way it sounds, this writer basically is caught in a crossfire.
Yes.
Yeah. So and I know I love this book, And Everyone Culture, written by Robert Keegan. I think inside he talk about there's a primary job and a secondary job that people play or people work. So the primary job is what you sign up for, and the secondary job is where you end up spending energy and time and attention to mitigate or navigate dynamics like this. Yeah. So now clearly the situation in the company has gone to people have to spend a large part of their energy and resources to manage to do the second job instead of performing in the first job.
Yeah.
So I've also advised co-founders or mediate and conducted relationship coaching for co-founders in this kind of situation where they want to fall apart, where they want to sell the company, the other one doesn't, that kind of situation. A lot of times, honestly, external intervention is needed, be it like an external coach or each of them has to go through coaching, or you get a facilitator in and all this, because it's at the top of it. Yeah. So where the dysfunctions comes from the top is external intervention. The bottom usually will have very limited authority and power to kind of like, make sense out of this whole thing. And clearly the co-founders have missed the big picture right now and get into a very personal level of attack or disagreement. If the intervention comes from internal, then it has to be leveraged on close relationship within that network. So it could be a HR person, not because of the job role, but because this HR person is very close to one of the co-founder, or a CFO who is close to the other co-founder, to kind of talk sense into this pair of leaders. Yeah, but it can be quite difficult. Yeah.
So like for this letter writer who is in mid-management, so let's say, for example, clearly from an external intervention, it's going to be quite difficult because this person has no power, unless, of course, at that point in time there is a HR consultant like a Seok Hian there, right? So then at least it can be somehow being elevated, this problem. But let's say if it's there isn't anyone, so from an internal intervention, I think it's how would someone like this person be able to initiate some sort of internal intervention? Is it through HR, or how does that work?
Normally, I would also advise them to have open conversations. That means, while Okay, first of all is to have open conversations to really, in some sense, to clarify the ownership of decision ownership. Yeah, because a co-founder likely have their own territory, so-called their scope of work to take care of, right? One way is to clarify as much as possible so that it to a large extent they can divide and conquer and still keep the company afloat. Yeah. And on gray areas or matters, then it's important to establish certain rules of engagement. How can we get an alignment and not undermine each other's leadership, by overturning the decisions. Yeah. And whenever possible, if it's a co-decision making, then as a HOD, you can still facilitate, and kind of have an open conversation internally to say that, hey, look, can we agree on this and not turn back the clock, after a day or two. Yeah. So it's to keep things as professional as possible. Yeah, that is on a coping mechanism, but that is not resolving the conflict between them.
I see. It's almost like a strategy to navigate.
Yeah, it's to navigate. And as a HOD, then my advice without external intervention then is just to focus on the BAU and keep the operations running while we buy time to help to see what else can we do to resolve the co-founders conflict.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would, in such cases, a lot of times during coaching sessions, I would first of all acknowledge, of course, it's going to be quite difficult, very difficult in this situation, and also to be able to empathize with them to say that the reason why this bothers you is because you care. You care enough for the company, right? You care enough for everyone. That's why you are bringing this up in this case. But because sometimes they are so into it, right? So they care too much. The one question I usually would like to ask them is that what is it that you can control and what is it that you can't control?
Yeah,
right.
That's a good starting point.
So that is something which we usually get them to think about. And in this case, definitely they can't control their mid-level. This person cannot fix. They can influence possibly, but they can't fix them in this case. And I think then what can be controlled is, number one, do not funnel down whatever's happening at the top to the bottom in this case, right? But instead filter rather than funneling in this case, to filter what is important for the business so that the front line can continue to deliver on those things, right? So I think perhaps maybe one of my values is clarity. I think it's very important that the people, at least the front line, because they're going out for war in this case, they need to be very clear what's the mission, and we can't pass down ambiguity, especially in this case where it's like one say this and the next day the other person were to say that in this case. And one thing that this mid-level letter writer can do as well is also to not take sides as well, right?
Yes.
It's something which he or she can control. Is to avoid taking sides, right? But it's quite easy sometimes to to spill the tea or get into the goss in this case, right? But it's going to be quite. That's why it is very intentional that at such a time, is much more important to really focus on the company's mission rather than managing the egos of these two co-founders in this case, right? So check in what can be controlled and what cannot be controlled. That is a good starting point for this letter writer to consider.
I think one point to add on to this perspective is sometimes it depends on the size of the company as well. So if it's really too small, everybody would know. It will become an open secret when the two co-founders couldn't get along, right? Because it just gets too obvious. So sometimes you may have to take sides. Yeah, sometimes I think they will be forced to take sides even if you personally don't want. So I think as a HOD, you can still have private conversations to say that, on the professional capacity wise, I will have to side because this is my direct boss. But I think for a personal wise, you can still have conversations to actually talk to the two co-founders and see what else you can leverage from a personal relationship standpoint.
how about this thing called just naming or calling the elephant in the room? Will that help the situation for this letter writer in this case to kind of like for example, if this person is reporting to one of the co-founders, and to be able to just say, hey, look, we are fully aware of what's really happening, the rest of the HODs are, and we are struggling and trying to understand what's really going on, right? I mean, in terms of you say this and then the next day the other person say that, right? And it's confusing the people in the front line. It's not helping the business, and we have the rest of the HODs. We have sat down, we talked about it on how to navigate this so that there's clarity that's being funneled down, but yet it's still not really helping. Everyone knows about it, right? It's the elephant in the room. So I just would like to call it out. But that's where it's like it just stops there. But what do I, please sort it out. I mean, I can't tell that to the boss, right? I can only just call it out. So I'm just wondering, how do you carry out that further conversation to ask them to really rethink that their actions are not helping the business?
As HOD, they can call it out, but it does come with a potential danger of becoming a common enemy of both co-founders, right?
Yeah.
And therefore, I always suggest an external intervention. But if they have to call it out, but they cannot resolve it because it's out of their control.
Yes.
But I think it's to really remind them of what is the original intent when the two of you get together and set up this company. And ask them some open questions like, what is the price you are now paying with this kind of dynamic between the two of you? Are you all even aware of the consequences and the impact you're creating as co-founders? And is this the decision to continue like this? Right? If that's your decision, then as employees, we also make our own decisions whether to leave or stay. I think it's so that is to really put things on the table and talk about it. Because I think from a co-founder's perspective, a lot of times they're also as young as the HOD, if not younger sometimes, is that they get so sucked up into the personal conflict that they lose the sight of the big picture or the original intent why I want to partner with this person in the first place. Yeah, so that could be one aspect. But when it comes to co-founder, another way to leverage in so-called sub-internal kind of relations is through the board. Yeah, if there is a board of advisors.
Okay.
Yeah. So at a co-founder, usually then you involve the board because the board who have invested the money wants to make sure the company thrives and this continues and therefore it might not go well. Yeah. So the board might actually take action or intervene or advise otherwise. So if the conflict is at a HOD level, then at least we can leverage on the co-founders level to talk sense into and to mediate. Yeah.
I agree. Okay. The other thing that I would probably advise, I would advise the letter writer to consider as well, if all these things after they tried and it's still, there's no progress in this case, is to really ask the hard question herself or himself that is this sustainable?
Yeah.
For the person's mental health and also the kind of what you said just now in terms of secondary job, right? Is it really kind of like sucking, the actual mission of the person? And if this continues and it's not helpful, and if Monday comes and you're dragging your feet to, and instead of like trying to win new businesses or try to win curry favor from the client and all these things, but instead you are trying. The question that you may have in your head is like, I wonder what's the weather of this 2% today, right? So if that continues, then I don't think it's going to be helpful. I think this person have all the permission to think about whether or not this person will continue to stay or to go.
Yeah, I think when it comes to conflict, right? Since we talk about this topic, is that there are some inherent tension that is built into an organization, especially when it starts to grow. So for example, like finance control costs, but marketing spends money. So these are actually meant for check and balance and healthy for the health of the organization. And these are inherent tension that are not meant to go away. But a lot of times as co-founders, as the company grows or as leaders, right, sometimes they are in the system for so long that they feel that how come they mistaken all these healthy tension as personal conflicts, or over time when they feel that it's like over time when marketing keeps spending money and spend more and more money as the company grows, and then finance want to control more SOPs and costs and all those things, and if they do not understand that there are inherent tension needed to keep the company safe and sustainable, and it is very easy to actually mistake those as personal conflicts. It's like, what is it you have issues with me? That kind of thing. Why you keep this cutting down by budget, and things like that. So if leaders do not understand the bigger picture of how business operates, it can lead to a lot of personal, conflicts unknowingly. Yeah, which actually is not meant to go away. These tensions are meant to stay in order to keep the company healthy. Yeah.
I'm just being reminded about this tension thing. I think a lot of times, me being also someone who is still learning how to confront people in a very healthy way in this case, or there is needed tension, right? So I'm being reminded that there is good tension and there's bad tension, right?
Yes.
So I think, but it is needed, that the good tension is needed. Because let's think about it this way: if there is no tension, then you can't play the guitar, right? So the guitar needs to have a tune to a certain tension, or the racket, for example, a racket game, racket. So it needs to be tuned to a certain tension so that it can deliver that swing in this case, the serve, right? So I think it's really important to be able to understand that tension is important, because it is for the greater good, and also it somehow it also would be a catalyst for creativity as well because of the tension.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So this is new to me. I mean, I never thought of it from that point of view. That's indeed, right? Some people may take it very personally to say that, it's you against me, but it is not, right? And because they may not be able to communicate it very clearly, so it may come across as very personal.
Yeah, I mean, back to the analogy of parents quarreling in a household, right? Because there are different roles as a nurturing figure and an authority figure. There can be inherent tension. You do the scolding, but I'll do the pep talk and all these things. But it cannot be just because it's a different approach. It doesn't mean that I'm doing pep talk because you are the authority figure and I'm trying to do it against you and get the child's relationship over to my side. It cannot be perceived this way. Yeah. So there must be at the alignment level at the top.
Okay.
Still.
Okay. Got it. Okay. So what are we telling our letter writer is that first of all, as a leader, he or she needs to be able to understand there's a primary and as well as a secondary job to it, especially as a leader, because there's this thing which sometimes you may think that you didn't sign up for it, things like managing conflicts and all these things, but it is part of the job in this case, right? And if the secondary job becomes too overwhelming, then there's something which you need to question yourself again to say, is it sustainable or not, right? The second thing that the letter writer can consider, of course, is to also ask themselves what can be controlled and what cannot be controlled, right, in this case. And to make sure that this person can double down on what can be controlled, like for example, ensuring that there's clarity that's being passed down instead of ambiguity, those things which this person can control. The letter writer should also somehow find a way to influence some kind of external intervention, if possible. This can be quite difficult, but if there is an opportunity to really consider that. And one of the ways is, of course, is through the board in this case. But I think based on a particular experience which I hear as well, I've got no experience about that here also, that sometimes the board actually do know about such cases already. Yeah. Yes. So they do know that
board
such
is
things.
another dynamic though. So I have to approach with caution.
Yes, you're right. And also the other side point that we talked just earlier on, it's about understanding there's good tension as well as also so-called unhealthy tensions, and we need to have such tensions because it will help the company to thrive actually, in this case. But be careful that sometimes we may mistake such tensions as personal attacks in this case. So I think that is some pointers that I caught. Did I miss out anything that would be helpful for the letter writer?
No, I think you've really encapsulated all the points very well.